It's important that we only one person at a time speaks. If you interrupt, you will be muted. It's campaign season again. Reminder that any form of campaigning is prohibited at NPU meetings. Please do not introduce yourself as a candidate or post any campaign literature in the chat. Candidates, as are all citizens, are welcome to participate at NPU F meetings, but public shaming and banishment will be swift. Finally, we are here tonight because the city has given the residents of Atlanta through the NPU system the opportunity to provide recommendations on applications and legislative changes that impact their quality of life. It's our responsibility to tell them what we think and, when appropriate, to share the strength of that opinion through hand counts. All votes taken at the NPU are only recommendations. Final decisions are made by city boards or city council. And I hope that you'll take advantage of expressing your opinions tonight, either in writing, by phone, or by leaving a comment during public hearing opportunities with city council. The first order of business is the approval of the minutes. They were sent to verified members and those on our mailing list, which is about 300 people. Are there any additions or corrections to the minutes? Jim?
Move to accept the minutes.
Great, thank you.
Second.
Second by Kay. All of those in favor. We're going to make sure everyone knows where the reaction button is, so please raise your hand. And I get a little counter on my screen. Okay, some of you are raising a thumbs up. Yep, great, you changed it. Oh, there we go. There we go. Everybody found the raise your hand button now? Good. Okay, 27 in favor. I'm going to lower the hands. Is there anyone opposed? I see one person opposed. Is that right? And thank you. And one, are there any abstentions? So by a vote of 27 in favor, no opposed, and no abstentions, the motion carries. I have one announcement tonight before we get into reports from city departmental representatives, and that is that there is a CDP discussion with Tim Keene, Councilmember Faroki, and Councilmember Ide tomorrow evening. On the consent agenda, there is information on the meeting and to get to a link to register. This is to talk about changes in the 2021 CDP, which many of us thought was going to be an administrative update, and it turns out there's some real landmines in it. Many NPUs around the city are upset. So as soon as I get the agenda up, please refer to that, and I'll mention it again a little later in the meeting. We're going to start off tonight with Atlanta Police Department. We have representatives from both Zone 2 and Zone 6. Major Reese, do you want to start out?
Sure, no problem. Good evening, Debbie, and to everybody else on NPUF. Hope everybody is well. One thing I wanted to go over very quickly, we had a series of pedestrian robberies. I'm sure you guys are aware, and you may have even seen the press conference where we made an arrest. Virginia Circle, Zone 6 had several, some in NPUF, some not. Rumson Road, North Highland, Virginia Circle, Arlington Avenue, and Northside Drive. So we were able to, well, then also they transitioned and had a robbery / carjacking issue up in Zone 2 that they transitioned to. But nonetheless, we were able to make an arrest and charge a significant group of juveniles. And Captain Mitchell can correct me if I'm wrong, if he knows, but I believe it was either 6 or 8 juveniles that were involved in these pedestrian robberies. But nonetheless, they are off the street. Our robbery unit did a very, very good job tracking them, along with our intel unit, and figuring out the car and all of those things. We were able to get them in custody down there in Zone 3 off of McWilliams Road. So hopefully those folks, those juveniles, won't be released anytime soon. So I wanted to give that touch of good news. And we did have a carjacking last night that I think they're still working through some of those details. It may or may not be exactly what we all thought it was at the beginning. So we'll see. Maybe next meeting I'll have an update as it relates to that. But that was off of, and I'm not going to say the street right, Pylant Street, Pylant. So we'll see how that one shakes out at the end of the day. So with that said, Zone 6, we continue to try and do the best we can. We've had meetings and discussions about the different corridors that access some of NPU F, of course, Piedmont, Cheshire Bridge, some of the others. So with that said, Zone 6 is creating a renewed focus on those areas in partnership with Zone 2, as we've kind of talked about on some of our other meetings. So I want everybody to know that as well. And as usual, I'm open for any questions that anybody has, anything they want to discuss. If I don't have the answer, I will do my best to get back to you as usual.
Okay, I see your hand raised.
Yeah, I just, regarding that, I guess it was a carjacking on Pylant. From what I'm hearing from parents, that's apparently a known area where our young people are going, parking, hanging out. And now that apparently the criminals have figured that out and that there's maybe a vulnerable population there, I would just like to ask parents to be aware of that, talk with their kids about it, and maybe think about finding a different place to be late at night.
Yeah, thank you, Kay. I would tend to agree with that, and that's why I say there may be some issues with this scenario that we're kind of trying to work through. The investigators are trying to work through. So I don't want to say one way or another or make any kind of offensive remarks as it relates to being a victim of a crime or why you were there or anything of that nature. So we'll just see what shakes out, and hopefully I'll have a decent update next NPU. Stephen, sir.
Go ahead, Stephen.
Hey, Major Reese, thank you for being here again, man. And I'll make it brief. I always say that. But that robbery on Virginia Circle was a friend of mine's daughter. And the one on Pylant Drive, both of these were within a few blocks of our house. And we were really, really worried about that. And I'm very glad to hear that you've made an arrest so quick. I don't know how you guys do that, man, because there's so many people running around. But thank you for excellent work there. And sent you a couple emails like you asked me to about the activity at Friends, and it's still horrible, just to let you know. And the street is completely flooded with illegal cars every night they're open. I spoke to the owner of MJQ that's now reopened and next door to Friends, and they're just as frustrated with Friends as we are, because it takes, they've got 40 parking spaces total for 3 big bars over there, and Friends takes up all of them, and they're out there drinking and partying every night. So just wanted to emphasize to you again that it's horrible, and we would appreciate any assistance in removing the illegally parked cars and the people walking the streets and robbing people every night they're open. I would appreciate it.
Gotcha. Yeah, I understand, Stephen. I can promise you, I know it's not to your satisfaction, but we are working on it to the best of our ability. We can do better, I understand. And you have my commitment. We're not going to give up on that place, I promise.
Well, don't get me wrong. I'm very grateful for the work you do, and it is more than I expected. Okay, so believe me, I'm a friend to the police, and
Fair
I know
enough.
it's a tough job.
I got you. I got you. I understand. I got you. Thank you, Steve.
Anyone else have a question for Major Reese?
I do have a friendly reminder, Debbie, if it's okay. The Zone 6 Town Hall got rescheduled. I know Kay is happy about that. To July 28th. I think, and Kay or Debbie, you can correct me if I'm wrong, I think they sent out an updated information about it, so you guys should have it, hopefully. So let's stay on it because we had the highest amount of registered people. So I'm proud of Zone 6, our residents and our business owners. So let's have a great discussion.
Do you know if we need to re-register for the meeting?
I knew you were going to ask me a tough question. And I tell you what, I will find that answer out. I feel like it was in one of the emails that Public Affairs sent out that you don't, but let me double check that.
I do recall reading that in the email as
Okay.
well. If you were registered before, you're good to go, but we would love to get even more people signed up. So we'll put that out on Facebook and make sure everybody can find the links and all that.
Okay, thank you, Kay.
Great, thank you. Gina, Rude, do you have a question?
I do. I don't know if this is the appropriate place to ask, but my son is going into 8th grade at Howard Middle School. And when he was at Inman, he rode his bike 2 miles to Inman every day and back. Do you think it's safe for our children to ride their bikes to Howard? And is there anything being done to protect the safety other than parents teaching the safety of bike safety and regular safety going on? But would you say our neighborhood schools, it is safe to ride a bike to?
Yeah, yes, I would say so. And what we're going to have is further discussions as we transition through the summer here, which is almost over, with the Atlanta Public Schools and all our different partners as it relates to that and what the safety procedures are, things. So, but from the Atlanta Police Department's perspective, I believe so. And if you have any specific concerns, I mean, we can talk offline if you want, and we can discuss some of those things. I don't have a problem with that, and I can tell you probably what the traffic will be like if we have any traffic issues, what those will be dealt with, or how they'll be dealt with, those things. So I'll put my information in the chat, and if you want to just have a side conversation and maybe go over some things, we can do that too if that'll make you feel better.
Just you saying that makes me feel better. So, but I might take you up on it. Thank you so much.
Yep, please do, no problem.
Thank you. Any other questions for Major Reeves? He's here every month.
I try to be.
You try to be, I know. And we appreciate it very much. Captain Mitchell? I'll turn it over to him from Zone 2.
All right, good evening, everyone. I'm Captain Mitchell, the Assistant Zone Commander for Zone 2. Major Sinzer is still out of town. He'll be back in a couple of weeks. Over the last 28 days, Zone 2 is moving in the right direction. We've seen an increase in aggravated assaults on 212's beat, which is the areas that encompasses NPU F. I know recently you guys heard about the shooting that happened at the gas station on Monroe. We did make an arrest in that case. The other aggravated assaults that happened at Onyx, as well as Allure, our aggravated assault unit has done a great job following the leads. Unfortunately, the victims have been uncooperative. With the shooting at Onyx, the victims went back to New York. They're from out of town. They haven't been cooperative with the police. And in the other incidents as well, the victims haven't been cooperative. And that's not a surprise, considering the type of clientele that goes to those establishments. They're not that forthcoming and cooperative with the police, but nonetheless, our investigative units are doing their job to solve these cases. Like Major Reese said, we're focusing on that area. We've been in contact with Zone 6 crime suppression unit. So we're working a lot of details along that Churchill Bridge Road corridor. We've also reached out to Georgia State Patrol. So they've been helping us on the weekends, Friday and Saturday nights in that space as well. So we continue to focus a lot of our resources over in that area on Friday and Saturday nights. And we've also had the help of SOS, which is our Special Operations Section, as well, helping us in that area. So, we think we're moving in the right direction. The case that Major Reese was talking about, it was 6 juveniles. The number was 6 that got arrested. So, we're out there. We're in the right spots. Unfortunately, you know, the different characters that are in these spaces, a lot of them are carrying guns. And so what we're seeing is a lot of these arguments that are starting out as verbal disagreements are immediately escalating to gun violence. And so, you know, we're in the area and we're doing all that we can in that space. And like Major Reese said, I'll put my contact information in the chat room. So if anyone has anything, any questions that they want to know offline, I can get back to you. You can email me or text or call, and I can respond with those answers. But I'm open for.
There, Cole Patton, do you have a question?
Yeah, I do. Understandably, you know, with this latest incident at the Chevron station, which I happened to drive by, unfortunately, twice yesterday evening, I think the concern here from all the citizens in this area is the influx of people coming to these clubs, posing as restaurants, and the fact that there are more and more incidents. The frequency is just through the roof. And I mean, it almost seems like these are somewhat platitudes, that things are being done, crime suppression, working with the highway patrol. But I mean, what are the real action items? I mean, closing these places down, posting patrol cars outside as somewhat of a show of force, more than just picking up the pieces after these events happen. I mean, this is to the point where it's lawlessness, and it's ridiculous. I'm just curious what the response from the police department is. And, you know, not only that, understandably that the police department is maxed, it's stressed with manpower, et cetera. But is this just an ineptitude of city leadership at this point? And what can we do as taxpayers to address this to get some immediate results?
Hey, well, Cole, it's Major. Cap, let me respond a little bit to that. So I appreciate your passion, and I understand where you're coming from, and I get the perception of what's going on out there. You know, as it relates to specific problem locations, we can talk about Onyx, we can talk about Allure, some of these other locations, especially up in that corridor. I can tell you that the city, at least from the police department's perspective, we are doing as much as we can. And what I mean by that is there's the nuisance property concept that we can take them in front of. We have our license and permits unit continually checking. And what I would say is, when you ask as the taxpayer and as the citizens, what can you do? Continue to discuss with your council members about the ability to strengthen some of the alcohol laws that surround, you know, Chapter 10, and what it gives the Atlanta Police Department the authority to do versus the License Review Board, those things. Because when the alcohol is involved in these clubs, as you stated, and as we have all stated, the restaurants operating under the guise of, bars operating under the guise of a restaurant, it limits some of the options that we have. And so we need some of those things strengthened. So I understand exactly what you're saying. Now, for specifics, like Captain Mitchell said, outside of parking a patrol car in there, we routinely try and do our best to send the cars around there. And then our partnership with the Georgia State Patrol, they are constantly up there. I hope that you see them, maybe you don't, but they are constantly up there. And very often they are partnered with Atlanta police officers in the car. So I want you to know that we are making a concentrated effort in that area. And I'm not going to totally speak for Zone 2 because that's in their area, but I can tell you we have discussions in our field operations division meeting all the time about what it is that we can do better, what it is that we can do more, and how can we focus on some of these problematic areas that we get, and how can we draw other departments within the City of Atlanta Police Department in, meaning our license and permits, our code enforcement, our Apex unit that deals with violent crime, and how we can focus them on those specific areas to try and do a little bit better as it relates to that. So I hope that answered part of your question, but you know, I want you to know we are there, and some of the things take time. I know that's not an answer that most people want to hear, but especially when it relates to some of these alcohol permits and the licensing review board, it takes a little bit longer than one would wish, and one that I would wish as well from the police department's perspective. Because in a perfect world, I know what we all want. We desire to have, if violent crime happens at one of these alcohol establishments, we need and want the ability to just immediately shut them down until their safety pattern can be established and there's some type of improvement as it relates to that. Whether that's a gas station or whether that's Onyx or whether it's something else. So that's where we're at.
And just to piggyback off Major Reese, as far as, what we're doing, in the shooting at the gas station, the officers were right across the street. And so, that's why we were able to make an arrest, because of the police work of them being there and able to get there immediately and put someone in custody. We can't be there. We can't be at every location, obviously, at all times. We can't have a patrol car everywhere at all times. But when the officer heard the gunshots, he ran to the gunshots and was able to make an arrest. So, Zone 2 and Zone 6, we're doing all that we can in that space with the resources that we have. The license and permits unit, they are constantly on Cheshire Bridge area doing compliance checks. They were over there this weekend at Street Bistro and some other places that are bars disguised as restaurants. And so they were over there doing compliance checks. So, we're in that space, but unfortunately, that process is very complicated because these businesses have lawyers and they fight. Their lawyers fight. And then also we have property managers that own some of these locations that are leasing them out to people, which is also causing issues. But the police department, we are there every single weekend.
Jim Hardy?
Well, I was just going to comment on the shooting. That's the second shooting at that location in a month. And strangely enough, that Chevron station is directly across the street from a place called Atlantis that occupies exactly the same place that the room service lounge occupied for years. And it took us 2.5 years to get the license pulled from room service lounge. Different name, maybe different ownership, same clients. In my opinion, if we shut down the clubs for 30 days, the violence would significantly decrease.
Mark Desmond?
Yes, I'd just like to just voice my opinion, I guess. I feel the police are working hard. I don't dispute that. I appreciate all that they do. I heard the comment, we're moving in the right direction. We are absolutely not moving in the right direction. We're moving, literally what's happening is I'm gonna move because the city's broken, the processes are failed, they don't work. What is it gonna take? You just heard a gentleman mention two times in a month, there's been a shooting over there. We know what's causing it. Until somebody closes these locations, I've met with Jennifer Ide at least 8 times over the last 2 years. Nothing has happened except it's getting worse. So while I hear the platitudes and all the wonderful comments, I'm sorry, the police are not achieving success. So I want to see success. I want the city to work and to make things happen. I would love to continue to live here, but at the end of the day, it's not safe. I can't walk my dog around Bismarck, around Manchester, on Piedmont, without either maybe getting hit by a car, somebody racing down the street, fireworks all night. I mean, come on, it is a battlefield. And unless somebody's willing to take the steps to address battlefield tactics and close these locations, it's never getting better. Thank you.
Hey, Mark, I appreciate your comments. And again, just like Cole, I can understand where you're coming from, but I want to be clear that it's not all incumbent upon the police department to shut some of these places down. We are a strong aspect of it, but we need our partnership, as we've discussed, through the license review board, all the way up to the mayor's office. And so I think somebody put in there in the chat where you can research the Clear Atlanta and some of those concepts. So those are things that we need to push onto.
Sir, I hear you, but I've been to all these things. It's not working. The process isn't working. It's broken.
I
So
didn't.
somebody has to fix it. And I'm more than happy to go to these things. I go to these things. It's not resonating. I don't know what has to happen. 10 people have to be murdered on Piedmont Road. There has to be 5 people killed outside Onyx. What is it going to take? Because I am more than willing to do what I need to do as a citizen here. But I mean, stop the people and see if they have illegal guns on them. Whatever it's going to take. I feel like the rules, they protect the criminals. They don't protect us. And I definitely don't feel safe here. And I pay a significant amount of money in taxes, more than most. And it is ridiculous. So I quite honestly, I do not agree. You tell me what I need to do and I will do it. I am actively involved. I call 911. I probably call 30 times a month. What is it going to take?
Thanks, Mark. Jim Hardy, as Public Safety Chair, do you have any final thoughts?
You know, I agree with what Jane Rollins posted, that Clear, the organization Clear, has made some good progress so far, significant progress, and neighborhood support, community-wide support of that organization, you know, can help, I think, significantly. And what Clear is all about is changing the alcohol licensing laws, making them work, because they're over 10 years old and they flat don't work. The License Review Board has been broken for some time and has not been fixed. The city council voted in to start a new task force on looking at the alcohol regulations and making changes to them. A group called ATAG 2 has been formed, and people assigned to it, members assigned to it, and it's yet to meet. It needs to meet. And Mark Desmond, to answer your question, what you can do, I think we basically need to go to City Hall and push the people at City Hall, because that's where the willpower is, in my opinion, severely lacking.
Thanks. Are there any other questions for Captain Mitchell or Major Reeves? Jane? Go ahead. Don't forget to unmute Jane Rawlings.
I would just also add on, it's the police department's responsibility to perform checks, issue citations. I would argue they are very actively doing that right now. We appreciate that. It is the city law department's responsibility to act on some of these citations. Right now, we have a due cause in the works for a repeat problem offender that the law department is holding.
Oh, for God.
So my suggestion would be, if you really want to contact somebody, you might want to direct some of your comments to the city law department.
Thanks, Jane. I don't see any other hands raised. Thank you again, Captain Mitchell, Major Rees, for being here tonight. And thank you for all that you're doing for the city, for us and NPU F. Thank
You're
you.
welcome. Thank you, Debbie.
Thanks. We'll see you at the town hall meeting next week.
I'll be there.
Cool. Okay. Code enforcement, are you here tonight?
Yes, I am.
Great. Go ahead.
Okay. Good evening, NPU F. My name is Officer Arthur Bird. I'm with APD Code Enforcement. I'm here on behalf of my department. Excuse me, I dropped my phone. On behalf of my department, for Officer Barushka Sovers, who's assigned to this NPU. I just have a couple things to mention. Number one, let me go with the statistics that has been forwarded to the NPU chair to be shared amongst the NPU. There are a total of 30 cases that have happened between the last 3 months, which is significantly a very low number which means that there's probably improvement from this standpoint. Again, I'm not involved with the NPU, but given the NPUs that I have dealt with and am dealing with, I should say, this is a very low number. And that probably signifies that there is some degree of improvement there in your NPU. Please remember that there are various departments that have code enforcement officers. You have APD code enforcement, you have the solid waste enforcement, you have fire, you have vehicles for hire, which really is out in the airport. So when you call to 311, please make sure that you know exactly which unit you're trying to get. Code enforcement APD deals with everything from the street into the property. The SWEET team, also called solid waste, deals with everything from the right of way into the street. So when you're calling in things like junk, trash, and debris that's in the street, that would go to the SWEET team. Anything that's on the property into, from the right of way into the property would be our department, as well as interiors. Now, speaking on interiors, we're still at this point under the COVID protocol. We're not doing interior inspections. Our best information regarding interior inspections are the people that call those cases in and provide us with information and stay in contact with us throughout the case. I have nothing else further to add at this particular point. If there are any questions, I'd be more than happy to try to entertain those or forward them on to individuals in my department so that they can be possibly resolved.
Officer Byrd.
Yes, ma'am.
Does NPUF have anything going to NREM? I think that's it.
I don't have that particular aspect of it, ma'am. That's under a different email that I don't have open, unfortunately. But you can contact our NREM department. That should be under the supervision of Jocelyn Lyles within our department, and she can give you more information in that regards, ma'am.
Okay. It's all way too complicated to keep track who does what. Katie Childers, do you have a question?
Yes. I was going to ask you, you mentioned that y'all were still under COVID protocols, and so you're not doing on-site inspections. Do y'all have a timeline of when to start those back?
Well, ma'am, we are doing exterior inspections. We are all out in the field now doing exterior inspections only. As far as interior, once again, those cases are generally handled through the protocol that we utilizing at this point in time, which is when a person calls in and says, "Hey, I have a leaking roof, I have a plumbing issue," or whatever the interior problem is, then we ask that person to provide, they've already given us that list of what the problems are. We ask that they also provide us with photos if they're able to do so. From there, we go ahead and status the case on through its processes. So that a notice will go out to the individuals regarding that interior inspection. Once the time frame has gone by, a reinspection, quote unquote, is statused for the officer to go to contact the individual back and find out whether or not that property has been resolved, or that issue, excuse me, has been resolved. Also communicating with the owner of the property to see whether or not they've done anything in regards to the property. For now, that's the protocol. We haven't been given anything else. However, we are having a Zoom meeting of all officers tomorrow. And it probably will give us some updates in regards to what's going on within our department.
Great. Thank you, officer.
You're welcome, ma'am.
Richard, Dorothy Sussman.
Yes, I have a couple of procedural questions related to your inspections.
Yes, ma'am.
Do you get your complaints from someone calling you, or how does that work? This is my first question. Does the person who makes that complaint, is there a way, is it transparent so that the person who is being complained about gets a chance, an opportunity to know who's doing that or not? And how active have you been able to be during COVID with doing your inspections? Those are my 3 questions.
Okay. All right. Well, let me start with the last one. In regards to what has happened since the COVID protocol, our department being staffed of civilian employees, we were sent home on I think it was March 13th of 2020. And we teleworked from our locations. We had to improvise and pull together the best ways to be able to handle these ongoing cases, the ongoing situations within our community. In doing so, that's how we came up with, doing the interior inspections. For the most part, the exteriors basically stayed on the back burner because we weren't putting our officers out in the field at that particular point. However, in August of 2020, we started putting a few officers out into the field to do the exterior inspections. That went on up until the end of June. After July 4th of this year, all officers reported back into the field. Now, okay. In regards to individuals that call in a complaint, and that's basically our main source. We're not doing what's called proactives, where an officer's driving around, they see a violation or violations and act on it. Because we're so backed up because of this pandemic. Right now, we're focusing on cases that have been pending since last year, that have been sitting stagnant for the most part. We're trying to push and move those forward, including court cases. In regards to any new cases that are coming in, initials, like what I've been doing for the past 45 days or so, I'm doing initials as well as re-inspections. So on the initials, from my experience, are cases that have been called in by the constituents regarding the various complaints of exterior commercial as well as residential violations.
Okay.
And going to your first question about whether or not you'll be able to know about people who call in. Unfortunately, we generally do not have that information ourselves unless the caller actually leaves their name and phone number. However, we can't give that information out. We don't give that information out because of privacy rights. If the case is open, there's very little information that can come out of the case. However, once a case is closed, you can go to the Open Records Act, and you can do that through the Atlanta Police Department website and request for that case or information from that case. However, there will be some redacting, and that would probably also include, if the person's name and phone number is in there somewhere, that would be redacted because of privacy rights.
Thank you.
Thank
Okay.
you, Officer Byrd. There is a question in the chat. If you could check on that and then answer back in the chat, I think everyone could benefit from it. I want to
Chat. Yes, ma'am.
in the chat. Thank you. Thank you for being here tonight.
All right, you're welcome, ma'am.
Is there anyone else from the city? Officer Ferguson, I'm sorry.
Yes, good evening, everyone. My name is Officer Ferguson with the SWEET team. Again, this month, the only news that I could bring to you all guys today is that effective July the 26th, we will be collecting yard waste every other week until further notice due to the pandemic. Again, as for every other entities that we are short of personnel and they're out sick as well. And that's why the yard waste been continuing to sit out in the neighborhood. I did ride NPU F today myself. Some of the areas have been collected and was collected this weekend as well. And we are continuing to try to do our best to continue to make sure you guys, yard debris is collected. We also try to make sure that everything for as your garbage, recycling, that will be collected on the date of collection, which was stated to the residents that it will be collected on.
Thank you, Officer Ferguson. Are there any questions? Carrie Aiken, your hand went up first.
Sure. Yeah, we go for every other week. That'd be great. We're at about 6 weeks right now. And could you put Officers Ferguson's info up on the chat so we can contact her, please?
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay, and we would also like for you guys to continue to place your yard debris out at the curb. Do not hold it, just continue to place it out at the curb. And when, if possible, we will pick it up, whether it's every other week or whenever we can get to it. But as of today, it has been stated that it will be collected every other week as of July the 26th.
Thank you. Officer Ferguson, are you able to put something in the chat?
No, ma'am. I can give it to you right quick.
Okay, hang on. I'm going to type it as you give it to me, but I need to. Okay, give me your email address, please.
My email address is V as in Victor Ferguson, FERGUSON at atlantag.gov. My cell 678-221-8215. 215.
678-221-8215.
Really?
Sir Ferguson. There you go. There's two listings in chat. One has her email address and the second one has a phone number. Okay, and do you know when the information is going to go out on the change to every other week pickup, so we know which week is our week for pickup?
Well, I got the information today, and hopefully it is going out probably starting today or maybe sometime this week it will go out.
Okay, so we need to hang tight and it is coming.
That is correct.
Great, thank you. Margie Fisher, I'm sorry, your hand is up. I missed you. Okay, was your comment that you haven't had a pickup for 6 weeks? I think that's true for many of us. Thank you. Thank you, Officer Ferguson. Is there anyone else from the city that?
Yes, ma'am. It's Battalion Chief Jason McLean, Atlanta Fire Department, Battalion 3.
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't see you there. Go ahead.
That's all right. I'm going to make it really brief. I know there's a lot of business to move on to. Just real quick, global AFRD news. We've had 17 new members that graduated into the field in the last 30 days. That's a direct impact on NPU F as one member came to Fire Station 15 right here at Piedmont and 10th Street. The instant response since the last meeting, Engine 19 in the Highlands had 247 calls for response. Engine 15 again at 10th Street and Piedmont had 496 incidents. The ladder truck at the same location, 296 incidents that they responded to. COVID, we all know it's slowly inching back up. It's been well advertised within the media here of recent, the Delta variant. So we're still, the message is, just be careful, maintain situational awareness when out and about. July 4th had a successful 2-day Peachtree Road Race this year. I know it was a little bit of an anomaly of an event due to last year's race being canceled. We held it 2 days this year. Very successful. The weather certainly played a role for us. It was cooler weather that morning, both mornings. Very, very few incidents to report, other than just a couple of situations of heat exhaustion. Last, I know it's been raining a lot. I'm tired of the rain myself. It's been great for the yards, but it's been too much. So the only message we're trying to send out, never drive through. If we get a torrential rainfall during these afternoon thunderstorms, don't drive through any kind of large amount of standing water across our roadways. The National Weather Service, you may hear it every now and then on the Weather Channel, turn around, don't drown. If the water gets up that significant, it doesn't take much water to move a vehicle. The CDC even reports that half of flood-related deaths occur from vehicles traveling into the water. And that's really it from the fire department, unless there's any questions.
Anybody have any questions? Please raise your hand.
Thank you for your time, and everyone have a good evening.
Thank you for being here. Make sure I know that you're here the next time.
I'll let you know.
Thank you. Thank you. Okay, last call for any city departmental representatives. Comments from elected officials is, I didn't see Councilmember Ide on the participant list. State Representative Stacey Evans is here. Stacey, do you have a real quick report, or were you going to leave something in the chat?
Hi, it's Olivia.
Oh,
I will just leave something in the chat. I don't have much to report. If anyone has any questions for me, happy to answer anything or try to get an answer to anything.
Great, thank you.
Oh, never mind.
Oh, someone's hands up.
I thought it was, but it was my mistake.
Okay, nope. I don't see it either. Okay, great. Any other elected officials or representatives of elected officials? All righty. Then we're going to quickly move to the consent agenda that was posted in the chat. I know some of you are having trouble opening it, so I'm going to give you the highlights. We have one event, that special event that's on the consent agenda. That is all. It's the GCA Fall Community Day in Piedmont Park on September 29th. It is a Class E event with 1,700 participants. The recommendation is to support. For consent agenda, generally we, the Class E's, we automatically approve without any discussion. I think the applicant is present, which is.
I'm here.
Okay, great, Tonette. Is there anyone here who wants to have this application removed from the consent agenda so that it can be discussed in the regular place on the agenda? Okay. Is there anyone who's in opposition to this recommendation? Is there a motion to adopt the consent agenda?
So moved, Jane Rawlings. Second, Kay Stevenson.
Jane and Kay. Okay, all those in favor of adopting the consent agenda, please raise your hand. And for those that might have come in late, the raise your hand function is usually under the reactions tab. There's one, oh, okay, that person. I'm gonna wait till the, okay, 24 in favor. There's one person that's using a clap. Is that really a, is that a clapping or is that a raise your hand? Oh, okay, that must have been a raise your hand. 25 in favor. Anyone opposed? I don't, oh, it would help if I would lower the hands. Okay, anyone opposed or abstaining? Motion carries. The consent agenda is adopted. Tonette, thank you for being here tonight. your application has been approved.
You, Miss Debbie. I appreciate it. I always like to hear updates. I live in the community, so this is great to hear. I appreciate your time and everyone's time.
Oh, well, come back anytime. Okay, if it's okay with everyone, I've been asked if we could move around the matters for voting, just move them up because there's some folks that have some other commitments, so we want to get to those cases first. I'm going to skip down to the variances, and once we do the variances, then we're going to go back to committee reports. And my pages are now out of order. Correct all up. Okay, the first application is V21-119, 640 East Morningside Drive, Northeast. The applicant seeks a variance from the zoning regulation to reduce the east side yard setback from 7 feet to 3.3 feet in order to construct a deck addition to the side of an existing single-family residence. The way we're going to handle these variance applications is ask the applicant to give us a very brief update, 2 to 3 minutes, on what their application is about. I'll then call on the neighborhood who has done the research on the application for their findings and recommendation, ask for a motion, and then we will begin discussion. So is the applicant present for 640 East Morningside Drive?
Yes, hi Debbie, all. This is Stuart Gold. I hope you can hear me. So just to be brief, the application is for a retroactive variance. We built a structure and we're in the process of doing the variance and the permit retroactively. It's a 6 by 6 foot deck extension of our existing back porch. The extraordinary issue is we have a 75-foot stream buffer in the back. It soaks up about 40% of our overall lot, leaving like next to no backyard. There's also, to make it worse, also is the steep topography. It drops about 40 feet in that 75-yard setback. To the west side of the house, is the driveway between our house and the neighbor. It's a shared driveway. So the only possible location for this was to the east side. This small deck is a grilling platform to use a gas grill. I mentioned, the situation with the stream buffer and the topography, and it encroaches, leaves about, like I said, like it says in there, reduces the zoning, the setback to about 3.3 feet on that side from our line of the property. It is obstructed from view from the road. It does have this matching privacy screen compared to the rest of the screen porch between both houses. It does have a gutter system installed, so drainage is not an issue. It drains it away from the house, both houses, and it does have an exhaust fan to send the smoke above the roof line. That's it in brief.
Morningside?
Yeah, so Morningside voted unanimously to deny this application. And we do have a neighbor on this call, and I believe a contractor to speak out in opposition to this.
Does Morningside have a motion?
Yeah, I'll make a motion to deny.
Okay, and is there a second to that motion?
I'll second.
Thanks, Kay. Okay, so we've got a motion to deny this application. It's been properly seconded. Well, I'll open it up for discussion, and let's start with the neighbor.
Can y'all hear me?
Yep.
Hi, everyone. I will read something briefly, and then I have some photographs I'd like to share. Just to bring you up to speed, no permit was ever issued. The 7-foot setback was violated. The structure structure is approximately 3 feet from the property line. A gas grill was installed and is working within the second-story structure. There is a roof above it, and it appears to be a fire hazard because of the proximity of combustible materials within the small wooden structure. The structure is clearly not a hardship. The grill can go anywhere in the backyard. The existing setback breach with combustible materials is dangerous. There is only about a 6-foot span between my roof overhang and my neighbor's roof overhang. The exhaust vent stack has been installed against their house and underneath an operable window. The structure is actually touching my magnolia tree branches. This is really close to my house, and I'm worried about the potential for fire. The health and safety of the surrounding homes and neighbors is paramount. This could set a negative precedent for our community. So may I share the screen?
Yep, go ahead.
Okay, I've never done this before, so let's hope it works.
The best thing to do is open the pictures first on your laptop.
They're open, let's see.
Okay, and then go to share screen.
Ooh, I think I'm in.
All right.
Oh, I'm going backwards.
Nope, you're okay.
Let me start at the front.
Okay.
Can everyone see?
I can see, so everyone should be able to.
Okay.
Yes.
The first picture is showing, let me bring it up a little. This line is the fence that the neighbors built, and that's pretty, right there is the property line. This is the structure that they built, and they're the stilt legs. And then above up here is the structure, this wooden box. And then on the other side is my 7-foot setback that is on the right. And if anybody has questions, please jump in. This is a picture, a close-up inside the red box showing the gas hose that's pulled from the house into the structure. And I believe that's an electric conduit of some kind. This is a picture. Is this covered at all?
What do you mean covered?
Can you see it all? Because mine's partly covered. You
Yeah,
can see every,
you're
okay. This is the view of the ceiling showing the vent that's attached before they close the ceiling that came from the gas grill, runs up into the stack above that you'll see next. This is looking through a kitchen window at the structure. And this is outlined. You can see the shadow of the grill within this box, right up against the tree that is literally touching that box. And on top is the smokestack against their house, underneath an operable window. There's the smokestack close up through my window. This is another view of it against their home and all the trees around it. This is hard to see, but it's a super close up of the stack. And again, it shows at the bottom right here where it has been attached to their roof and how close it is to the siding of their home. And lastly is their backyard. And it appears like there's plenty of room for a grill and there's a big trampoline back there. So that's all the pictures I have. I also spoke with multiple licensed contractors about this. And I'll quickly read their comments. Some of them are similar to mine, but I'll just share them quickly. No permit posted per City of Atlanta regulations. 7-foot setback violation. It appears the structure with grill has been built within the setback 2 to 3 feet from neighbor's property line. No effort was made to communicate with the neighbors or the City of Atlanta in advance of the setback violation. Grill installed in a particularly small space with a roof overhead. Combustible materials were used. Manufacturer's recommendations were not followed. The exhaust vent for the grill hood also appears to be in code violation. It is not the required distance from the wall of the house, and it terminates next to an operable window, which allows for the entry of byproducts from combustion into the home, such as carbon monoxide. This grill structure creates a fire hazard, not only for the home, but for the neighborhood. Fire codes are enacted to help prevent fires, particularly the spread of fire moving from home to home. This grill structure is both a fire hazard and a health and safety issue. If allowed, this will set a negative precedent for the neighborhood.
Cheryl, did you?
Chair, I do have a question.
Sure.
It's not for you, Ms. Honeycutt. You've made your case.
Oh, I'm
Clear,
sorry.
clear
sorry.
as a bell. My
Okay.
question is for the applicant. Sir, what in the world's going on here? You're doing combustion illegally without a permit inside the, why did that happen, sir?
Well,
I don't know if anything she's saying is accurate or not. You know who will know that? The inspector, when you went down to file the plans, the plan inspector, the inspector who watched you put it together. None of that appears to have happened. What in the hell is going on here, sir?
That's the reason we're applying, we're in the process. Obviously, during the permitting process, all this would come to light, and we would have to take the corrective measures to fix those things.
No, sir, that's not the way the permitting process works. You come down with a plan, it gets approved by a very skilled and trained inspector, and before you build it. That's how the permitting process works. You don't go build something.
Understood. We got some bad information from the person doing the work in the house, and we didn't do our due diligence.
Who was that person,
We had
sir?
just recently moved to the area, so it was.
Who was that person, sir?
What's that? I'm not at liberty to discuss now because we're dealing with separate issues with them.
Okay, so an unknown person whose name you won't provide did this work. That's your statement for the record.
We've
is that
had,
right?
yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thanks, Jack. Charlotte Borkhorst, you had your hand raised?
Yes, I did.
We're getting a lot of.
Is it okay now?
Yes. A little bit.
Okay.
better.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Can you hear me?
Yes. Apparently not. Charlotte, we are not able to hear you now. While you work on your.
I'm sorry, can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Okay, I'm very sorry. I'm a Luddite, I guess. Okay, this is Charlotte Borkhorst. I'm a longtime member of Morningside Lenox Park. Lived on East Morningside Drive for 36 years. And I want to say that I believe that the city ordinances requiring permits, the code requirements, and then the inspections that are follow along and are required, I think they are established in the best interests of the entire community. They're designed not for the benefit, certainly, of an individual or even a certain street or a certain part of the city or the neighborhood, but for the benefit of all. And I think that all of us have a responsibility as good neighbors to go through that process of paying for and obtaining a permit when it's required. And I believe that any contractor or builder or architect worth hiring in the city of Atlanta knows this. Nobody wants to be the bad guy, but we have a responsibility as good citizens, and this means following the rules. And this is required of everyone. No one's exempt from it. There is no topography issue here. There is no issue with room. There's plenty on the back of the house. And we need to support all neighbors, and certainly I think Cheryl here, and deny this request, even though the structure has been built. It is absolutely ridiculous that something like this ever happened. I'm sorry to say.
Okay, thank you for your comments. Carrie Stoltz. Carrie, don't forget to unmute yourself. Carrie, your hand came down. Okay, please raise your hand if you've got another comment. Stuart Gold.
Yeah, just as a rebuttal, the permit process, you know, if the issue at here is the variance in the space, the permit process will address a lot of the concerns. Potentially, you know, in a case where the variance is approved, the permit application will call for the inspectors to come and the code enforcement. We have to submit the line drawings. This isn't just that we're requesting the variance and we're done. We have to go through the whole permit process. And if in that process, you know, it may come up that the structure is not within code, cannot be made within code or anything like that, then we'll have to see, you know, if we have to take it down at that point or not. Our concern is there really isn't. The backyard is small. The trampoline is on the edge of our driveway. What you can't see over the side of that fence is the 10-foot drop off to the rest of our backyard that's cut off because we have a stream buffer further down to the right of the picture still on the screen. So like really, like we understand that we did this without following the correct process. That's why we're trying to go back and correct it. This is the first step of the process, is requesting the variance. We do have a history with our neighbor due to their an incident with a tree that was on our property when they constructed some steps. And there's the line between the two properties was not clear. There was a series of incorrect surveys used in some projects, which is what resulted in the process that since has been corrected. But I do want you to consider the situation without regard. We are going to have to go through the permit process. We are going to have to put everything within code. And that's kind of why we're doing this whole process.
Okay, thank you. I don't see, oh, Kay Stevenson, I do see your hand raised.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that I think the point here is not that you will go through the process later and later someone may decide that it's not up to code. Most of us in this NPU have been doing this for a long time, and we know that this variance would not have been approved had you gone through the appropriate process. So this rejection, if that's the way the vote goes, would have happened whether you did it now or did it at the time when you should have. So that's all.
Thanks, Kay. Okay, we have a motion from Morningside to recommend denial of this application. It was properly seconded. I'm going to ask for a vote now. All those in favor of the motion to deny, please raise your hand.
To deny.
And if you haven't already, please mute. Okay, I see one person with a thumbs up and one person clapping. Is that a hand raised? There we go. Okay, the number has stopped changing. There are 29 who are voting in favor of recommend to deny. Let me lower your hands. Oops. Okay, I'm lowering all hands. All those in favor of, all those opposed to the recommendation to recommend denial, please raise your hand. And as a reminder, if you have a financial interest in the application, you should not vote. Okay, I don't see any movement. That's 2 that have voted nay. Are there any abstentions? I'm lowering hands first. Any abstentions? Please raise your hand. No abstentions. By a vote of 29 in favor 2 opposed, 29 ayes, 2 nays, no abstentions. The motion to recommend denial carries. And that recommendation will be sent to the BZA.
Madam Chair.
Yes.
Mr. Gold, I urge you to go forthwith to the City of Atlanta criteria for zoning variances, and there are listed pretty clearly. And we'll see at the BZA, and you can explain which, none of them contain, to my knowledge, a portion that this is just where I'd like to put something. None of them. In fact, they're very much not in that atmosphere and that approach at all. So be sure to come tell us which criteria at the BZA that you think this met, because I don't see it in there anywhere.
Okay.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you, Jack. Next application is V21-128, 915 Cumberland Road. The applicant seeks a special exception from the zoning regulations to allow active recreation in a yard adjacent to a street, which is Wessington Road, in order to install a swimming pool spa. Is the applicant present?
No, the applicant is not present. I am the contractor on behalf of the applicant.
That's cool. Thank you. Go ahead. Quick overview, 2 minutes.
Yes, this pool is going to be located in the back of the house. There is a lot of trees and vegetation that are blocking almost the entire view all the way to the back. The pool is not going to be visible from the street. We've met with the neighborhood committee on site, and I think I've seen the lady. She was here speaking in the previous matter. So,
Yep, that's Rebecca.
Rebecca, yes.
Okay, Morningside, what were your findings and your recommendation? Rebecca?
Unmute Rebecca.
Oh, sorry. This was an issue where it was very questionable if there actually needed to be a variance it was a overhead property line kind of issue. There's no way to see this from the street. And we voted unanimously to approve for Morningside, and I'll make that my motion.
Okay, is there a second to the motion?
I'll second.
Thanks, Kay. Okay, is there anyone here to speak in favor or opposition to this variance? If so, please raise your hand. I'm seeing none. Any discussion at all? All right, we do have a motion that was made and properly seconded to recommend approval of V21-128. All those in favor, please raise your hand using your raise your hand reaction button. Oh, someone is clapping. There we go. They look very much alike. I have the same problem at APAB. Okay, I see 26 in favor. Let me lower your hands. Okay, anyone opposed, please raise your hand. I'm not seeing any hands raised. Any abstentions, please raise your hand. Okay, the vote's closed by a vote of 26. Ayes, 0 nays, and 0 abstentions. The motion carries. Thank you. Next application is V21-132, 548 Park Drive Northeast. Applicant seeks a variance from the zoning regulation to reduce the required east side yard setback from 7 feet to 2.7 feet in order to construct an outdoor fireplace and add a pool spa equipment. And the applicant is on screen. Hi, Nina.
Yeah. Hi, Debbie. Hello, everyone. I'm Nina Gentry. The owners of 548 Park Drive are requesting to reduce the east side yard setback to the existing setback of the home, which is 2.7 feet, which comes out to 2 feet 8.4 inches. for an addition of an outdoor fireplace, pool, spa, and equipment. The property is non-conforming, having only 50 feet of street frontage and just less than 9,000 square feet of land area. 548 Park Drive is developed with a 2-story home that has an east, as I mentioned, has an east side yard setback of 2.7 feet. The home is deep and is greater in length than the adjacent home on the east. A privacy fence is along the east side yard setback, side yard property line, and the outdoor fireplace will be constructed where the only thing visible to the neighbor on the east would be a portion of the chimney. No other proposed improvements will be visible to the neighbor on the east. We have only received concerns from that particular neighbor, although the majority of the proposed improvements will not be visible to their property. The current owners purchased the property in 2012, and the current conditions were present at that time, including the lot coverage of 62.4%. To offset the construction of the pool, spa, and equipment, a portion of the driveway will be removed, and the resulting lot coverage will be 61.8%. The Office of Zoning and Development did not require the owner to apply for a variance in regards to the lot coverage, since we are reducing it below the current condition. I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Okay, let's hear from Virginia Highland, their findings and their recommendation, please.
Jack White for the Virginia Highland Civic Association Planning Committee. This was a difficult variance for us as it turned out. And as Nana pointed out, the lot coverage after completion of this project will be at 61.8%. So our process is similar to Morningside's and others. We wait for reactions, if any, from neighbors, and then we look at trees and stormwater runoff and any other impacts that we can observe on the lot. There are no tree issues. Our policy with very large percentage of lot impervious surface, in this case, starting with 62 and reducing it a little to 61, is that we ask applicants to treat their stormwater as if they were going to get it down to 50% in compliance. And that is particularly true when they are proposing to remove, as these applicants are, removing a large amount of the concrete and a large amount of terraced gardens and steps in the rear to put in this pool. So they are actually removing their nonconformity, their existing nonconformity. So in our view, the code reads that in fact, now you do need to deal with a reducing your stormwater runoff to 50%. That is as if your lot were 50%. That's what we propose to the applicants, as we have proposed it to others who had such an this extraordinarily large amount of pre-existing concrete. We ask them to, having heard nothing at that point from neighbors, we ask them to reduce their stormwater coverage down to 50%. It may be that the city will require them to do this in any case. I think that they might, but one of our conditions for supporting it was that they go ahead and achieve that. For many years, as you've heard, for many, many years, this lot has been shedding an extraordinary amount of stormwater straight down the street onto Park Drive and into Clear Creek. And the city and the other citizens in this city have been paying to treat it. So that was our request. And at our planning meeting, there was general agreement that that seemed quite doable and they would make an effort. However, when we got time for the board meeting, the applicant reported that they considered that unfeasible and undoable and too expensive to come up with a conceptual plan. We were surprised because in our experience, and it's our professional belief, that it is indeed not at all expensive to come up with such a plan, and that it is a necessary step in any case toward moving. In addition to that, Mr. Brazina, Tim Brazina is on the line, Debbie, and I'm going to yield the floor to him. He is the next door neighbor. He did not appear at the planning meeting for a reason he'll explain to you, but he has his own separate objection. Mr. Brazina.
Mr. Brazina, unmute.
Yes, thank you, Jack, and good evening, everybody. I am the next door neighbor of 548 Park Drive. I'm at 552 Park Drive. And the reason I oppose this request for a variance has to do with the fact that as things currently stand, my neighbor's house does not conform to the 7-foot setback. It was built a long time ago. And so as a result, it's just a few feet from the property line. As a result, our houses are very close together, which already contributes to a closed-in feel. And what they're proposing to do is to build within the setback, continue building within this 7-foot setback, down the property line, including some significant structures, this fireplace, which will have to have a chimney. That's as I understand it, it's going to be at least a story tall, maybe higher. The chimney has to rise above the adjacent roof line, as I understand it. And that's just going to sort of exacerbate this issue of being closed in. And I've been in communication with my neighbor, Tori Noto, and I've tried to get along with my neighbors, and so I've explained this isn't a personal issue, but I can't understand really why they feel a need and feel determined to build within the setback, because there doesn't seem to be any hardship issues associated with this. They have plenty room in the backyard. I'm not asking them to abandon their plans. I hope to see their plans fulfilled. I'm just asking them to move back these proposed structures a few feet to respect the 7-foot setback for the remainder of their property. Again, our houses are so close together. I have to look out for the interests of my own property, which may be impacted if structures are just going to continue to be built right up near the property line. I think that's all I have to say. I'm happy to take questions on this. I'm happy to explain why I missed that first planning meeting, because I got a letter that had the wrong date included for that meeting. I also would like to mention that my spouse is also on this call, and she is listed on the title to this property, and she could quickly, if it's okay, she could quickly indicate whether she is also opposed to this request for a variance.
Okay, before you do that, let me get a recommendation from Virginia Highland. And
Virginia Highland recommended the planning committee and the at the meeting, and it led the board recommended unanimously on the recommendation of the planning committee at the meeting to recommend denial of this motion as it currently stands. We support Mr. Brazina's objection, and we have our own concern for the stormwater, the failure to treat the stormwater.
Is there a second to the motion?
I second that.
Jane Rawlings.
Okay. Charlotte, thank you. I also see your name popped up. Okay. So discussion on the motion. Mr. Brazina's wife, if you want to comment first, and then I see some hands raised.
Yes, hi. Am I off mute?
Yes, you are.
Okay, my name is Kelly Crane. I also reside at 552 Park Drive. And I agree with the comments of Jack White and my husband, Tim Brazina. I would just add that there's two things that we're principally concerned about. One is the fireplace, which is in very similar proximity to the pictures we saw earlier at the other property. And I do have a couple of pictures if anybody wants to see them. And there's also going to be a pool house that's in the proposal, and just a number of things that are being built down the property line. And certainly our backyard would have visibility of all of these structures that are being proposed, whether they could be seen from inside the home or not. That's what I wanted to add.
Great, thank you. Is there anyone else that wants to speak in favor or opposition?
Debbie, is it time for me to speak now?
I was just going to check to see if there was anybody else, and then I was going to call your name, Nina.
Okay, thank you.
Go ahead.
Thank you very much. There is no pool house proposed whatsoever. The only structure that will be visible to and I can share the site plan if you would like. The only portion of the outdoor fireplace, which is 5 feet by 3 feet deep, is a portion of the chimney that will be above the existing privacy fence that is currently on the property. And we will be meeting all regulations that are required, whether it be stormwater and also anything the fire department has to say. The roof line over the existing deck, covered deck, will be modified to allow for the outdoor fireplace. And the fireplace will be in line with the existing home setback. I have absolutely tried to find a survey of the east side property and have not been able to, but from bird's eye, it appears that not only is their home, which many of our homes are in our setbacks, but they also have a detached garage that appears to be in the setback. And please note, I said appears. We did attempt to get work with engineers on stormwater, and we got 2 quotes. Actually, I got names of 2 engineers from Mr. Randy Pimsler, an architect, who happened to also be on the planning call. And I was able to get 2 names from him. And one of those names actually had given us a bid of $9,000. The other bid was for like $8,400. And we felt this was exorbitant for conceptual plans. And as far as the reason, I believe Mr. Brzezina was going to mention he wasn't at the planning committee meeting, is I generally, and most of you on this call know me, particularly in COVID, I send out letters with documentation, site plan surveys, other documentation from the received, stamped and received application, listing all the dates, times, and links for the various meetings. After I sent the original letter out, I realized that I had transposed, which I'm known to do, the date for the board meeting, which was supposed to be the 12th of this month, and I put in the 21st. I immediately sent out a new letter, and all my envelopes have a subject line that reads in reference to, and in this case, it would have said, variance for 548 Park Drive. So I understand and apologize to Mr. Brzezina on the board call about that error, but I did correct that error as quickly as I could. And their second letter never was returned, as their first letter wasn't. So I would just hope that the members of this committee would understand that we do meet the criteria for this setback reduction, and to keep in mind that the request from the Virginia Highlands Civic Association as to stormwater is not germane to the variance request, nor is the section of the code quoted to us for their reasoning, is it under the purview of the Office of Zoning and Development. I'd be happy to answer any questions anyone may have. Thank you.
Okay, I see one last hand.
Madam Chair, I'd like to make one more comment if I could.
Okay,
One of the outcomes of this unfortunate snafu, which is just a clerical error, was that it actually deprived us of the opportunity to try to hear Mr. Brzezina and Ms. Crane's concerns prior to the planning meeting, which would have led to a different process on there. In fact, the applicant has an unused driveway on the opposite side of this property. And while we don't get into design, let's do this, let's do that, we do look at the feasibility of changes, as was done on the application 2 ago. Could it be done? It could be done. I'm not telling anybody what they should like or not like, or what their judgment should be. And we're certainly not telling this applicant any more than we're telling Mr. Brazina and Ms. Crane what the height of the driveway should be for them to object to it. The nonconformity will be removed, and then it will be rebuilt and extended. And that is the core of that objection. And in our objection, I am not confident at all. There's a reason we have gone through 7 times, and I counted them, and before this group, and asked people to commit to making the appropriate stormwater improvements, and they all have successfully. None of them reported any extra expense in the process of doing so. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Okay, thank you. Last comment, Mr. Brazina.
Yes, just very quickly to respond and follow up some of the comments made by Ms. Gentry. She suggested, she said she wasn't clear or sure, but she suggested that one of our structures, a detached garage, was built within the setback. That's completely false. There's no truth to it. I've measured it myself. I don't know why she would throw that in there. So that raises a question.
Not relevant. Let's move on.
Okay, the point that is maybe more relevant is that and she offered no compelling reason why her client needs to build these structures within the setback. That's all. Thank you.
Okay, great. Thank you. Okay, I don't see any other hands raised, so I'm going to call for a vote. The motion from Virginia Highland is to recommend denial of V21-132 at 548 Park Drive. All those in favor of the motion, please raise your hand. And a Zoom tip for those of you that are using the reactions tab, it says raise hand in the bottom on your screen. So, okay, I see one yes. I'm assuming that means that you're in favor. Just raise your hand. Okay, numbers stop moving. That's 27 in favor of the motion. Whoops. All right. All those opposed, let me lower the hands. All those opposed to the motion to recommend denial, please raise your hand. Has everybody voted? Okay, I see one voting nay. And are there any abstentions? Please raise your hand. Okay, I'm not seeing any abstentions.
Excuse me, Debbie,
Yeah.
could you be clear on what the basis of the denial is on? That would be helpful. Thank you.
Chair, if it would help, I'd be glad to forward Virginia Highland's motion from its board meeting, which is what I read here,
Yeah.
which was the objection to the side yard setback by the neighbor and the inability to be given assurances that there will be 50% of the stormwater will be captured or treated on site.
All right. Thank you, Jack.
You're welcome, Nana.
Yeah, and Jack, could you send me your recommendation so I can forward that with our letter of denial? By a vote of 27 ayes, 1 nay, and no abstention, the motion to recommend denial has passed. Okay. Thank you. Next application, V21-138, 755 Adair Avenue. This is a amended referral certificate. The applicant seeks a variance to reduce the front yard setback from 35 feet to 16 feet, 3 3/8 inches. That has been changed from 9 inches. And to reduce the south side yard setback from 7 feet to 4.7 feet for an addition to an existing single family dwelling. Nina.
Thank you, Debbie. Hi, I'm here representing Nina Gentry, representing the owners of 755 Adair Avenue. The property owners are requesting to reduce the front yard setback, as Debbie mentioned, from 35 feet to 16 feet, 3 3/8 inches. And the south side yard setback, Debbie, from 7 feet to 4.7 feet to allow for a second story addition and rebuilding of the front porch. The existing front yard setback is 20.5 feet, and the south side yard setback at the front corner of the house is 4.7 feet. The property has street frontage of 57 feet and is trapezoid in shape with topography that slopes down from the street. It appears if you went by this house today, and from how the front porch is situated, that the structure was originally built as a duplex because there were two separate front porches, and over the years they have been connected with some type of concrete to create one porch. Currently, the porch is 457 square feet. The rebuilt porch will be 310 square feet. The footprint of the home will not be expanded. The front yard setback reduction is driven by the new front porch and a bay window above the porch on the second floor that will be cantilevered over the rebuilt porch. Again, I sent letters to all the surrounding neighbors, and we've received no response from many neighbors having any issues, have received response from a couple of adjacent neighbors that support. Be happy to answer any questions.
Okay, let's hear from Virginia Highland. Jack, do you?
The planning committee and we reviewed it. There are no stormwater issues, no neighbor issues, no tree issues that we identified. Planning committee and board unanimously recommended approval, and that is my motion.
Okay, is there a second to Virginia Highland and Jack's motion? Thanks, Rich. Rich Sussman. All righty. Is there any discussion on the motion to recommend approval? Any questions for the applicant? Seeing none, I will call for the vote. The motion is to recommend approval of E21-138 at 755 Adair Avenue Northeast. The motion was made and properly seconded. All those in favor, please raise your hand. Okay, has everyone voted? It looks like there's 21 in favor of the motion. Let me lower your hand. All those opposed to the motion, please raise your hand. Jack, are you opposed to the motion? No, okay, thank you. Opposed to the motion? Okay, I don't see anyone opposed. And any abstentions, please raise your hand. I don't see any abstentions. By a vote of 21 ayes, 0 nays, and 0 abstentions, motion to recommend approval carries.
Thank you for your time this evening. Have a good balance of the meeting.
Oh, thank you. We're going to have lots of fun. Last variance application is V21-140, 1150 Virginia Avenue Northeast. The applicant seeks a variance to increase lot coverage from 50% to 55.65% for the construction of a swimming pool. This is 1150 Virginia Avenue, which is in the Virginia Highland neighborhood. Is the applicant present?
Yes, Debbie, this is Hugh Tully from Hugh Tully Pools. I am representing the homeowner. The homeowner purchased the home earlier this year. She was already over her 50% impervious coverage allowance. We have designed her a pool and spa with pretty much no decking. She's going to use turf around the pool. And the increase to 55.6 roughly percent we have already put into place all the mitigation to bring the stormwater management back down to the 50% level. We're going to put in flow wells, and the overflow for the flow wells are going to hit the driveway and go right out to the street. The way this lot in home is constructed, there's a lot of retaining walls to bring the house level. And they're all these big 16-inch granite retaining walls. And it's just, it just eats up her impervious allowance. The pool is going to be between the garage and the house. It will be very private. It's not going to be seen by any neighbors. We haven't had any complaints or any objections from anybody in the neighborhood. Just a woman and her five daughters that wants to have a pool in their backyard. And we've done everything we can from a planning standpoint to overcome the impervious restrictions. Happy to answer any questions.
Okay, let's hear from Virginia Highland next.
No tree issues. Mr. Tully did, in fact, interrupted my request when we were talking to him about what was needed because he understood it and he did it, increase the stormwater treatment capacity on the lot. And we've had that verified by our own stormwater analysts. So there'll be actually less stormwater leaving there than the code than he is. There will be no more stormwater leaving there than if it were 50%. It will actually be less than if it were 50%. Planning committee and board unanimously recommend approval.
Great.
That's my motion.
That's your motion?
Yes, ma'am.
Second, Jane Rollins.
Thanks, Jane. Okay, we have a motion to recommend approval of V21 140 1150 Virginia Avenue. Is there any question? Are there any questions for the applicant? Jane, does your cat have a question? Would you please ask to raise a paw? Thank you.
He only cares about me during Zoom meetings.
Okay. Rich Sussman, do you have your hand up?
It's really welcome to hear during the planning stages that a contractor takes and the homeowner take the initiative and try and be a good neighbor. And in this case, make sure that stormwater is kept on site and that, these homes aren't $20,000 homes or $40,000 homes. There's a major expense going into it. And I'm glad they're spending the extra money to make sure that the stormwater is kept on site and following all the regulations. And I hope that other neighbors would do the same thing too.
Thank you. Thank you. I agree. Okay, any other comments? If not, I will call a vote. All those in favor of the motion to recommend approval of V21 140 at 1150 Virginia Avenue, please raise your hand. Okay, I think the number is stopped. That's 21 ayes. All those opposed to the motion, please raise your hand. Okay, I don't see any hands raised. And are there any abstentions? Please raise your hands. Okay, I didn't see any abstentions. By a vote of 21 ayes, 0 nays, and 0 abstentions, the motion to recommend approval of V21 140 carries. Okay, we're going to go.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you, Mr. White. Thank you, Debbie. Enjoy the rest of your evening.
Thanks, Hugh. All righty, we are going to go back to our agenda. We're going to follow the original order, which would take us to, I believe it's the planner's report. Doug, is there a planner's report?
Yes, there is. Good evening, everybody. Let me grab that right quick. Thank you all. Once again, my name is Doug Young with the City of Atlanta's Planning Department. I work in the Office of Design, and my day job is managing the city's historic preservation programs, but tonight I'm here as your NPU planner. A couple quick announcements from the department. One is a draft copy of the 2021 Comprehensive Development Plan. It can be found online, or you can pick it up at all the public libraries near you. If you don't have internet access, I'll post the link to that Comprehensive Development Plan in the chat, along with the other vital information from these announcements. NPU University, which is an educational opportunity by the Department of City Planning, is going to offer a bylaws clinic on July 29th at 6 p.m. for neighborhood and NPU leadership, bylaws community members, and anyone interested in learning about more about NPU bylaws. As you might know, they have to be reviewed and updated every year for each NPU. Number 3, the applications for the 2022 Atlanta Main Street program will be open from July 15th to August 15th of this year. A donation of $20,000 will be provided up to 3 community-based nonprofit organizations to implement the National Main Street Framework and hire part-time staff to support their neighborhood business districts. The National Main Street Program is a historic preservation-based economic development strategy for commercial establishments. Item number 4, the Urban Enterprise Zone program provides property tax abatement for business owners, creating jobs, affordable housing, and other community benefits in target areas. We are pleased to report that the State General Assembly passed changes that we requested, the City of Atlanta requested, and Governor Kemp signed into law. The Department of City Planning is preparing legislation to update the city code and will keep you updated on changes to the Urban Enterprise Zone program. If you want more information about that progress of that work, you can email uez@atlantag.gov. And as I noted, I will put links to all these announcements and programs in the chat, as well as my name and contact information.
Doug, the Main Street program,
Yep.
what, is that a new program?
The Main Street program nationally has been around for many, many years. It was an offshoot of the National Trust for Historic Preservation. The city offering this these sort of startup funds to these business groups is a new thing for the City of Atlanta.
And when is the deadline to apply?
Let's see. July 15th to August 15th. It's about a month, 1 month window.
Okay, and do you know how the information is disseminated? You know, so people find out about it?
Beyond announcing it tonight?
Yeah.
I do not know what else has been done to disseminate that. It's from our Housing and Economic Development Office. So I suspect it's going to show up on social media from our department.
Okay.
But I don't know beyond that what would be the likely sharing of that. We'd ask that the NPU share it if you're all willing to do that as well, of course.
Yeah, we have a number of business associations.
Sure.
Doug, I'm sorry, go ahead.
I was
please.
going to ask Jim if he thought this is something that the Pi High Alliance would be interested in.
That's a good potential if we can get more information that digitally that I can share, would appreciate it.
Okay. Okay, I'll look for that in the chat and get it.
Yeah, there is a portion of our webpage that will be linked in the chat, Jim, so you can click on that and get probably much more information.
Debbie, I was just going to say, I'm on the distribution for the Main Street program, and so is the Virginia Highland District Association. We've been in conversation with them for a while.
Okay. Okay, good. Okay, sounds like something we'd want to take advantage of.
Hey, Doug, tomorrow night's meeting, the open house that Tim Keene is hosting, is that going to be taped? Do you know that? Can you ask anything you can do inside the department to see that it is recorded and posted for subsequent viewing?
Sure. I don't know what would be recorded or not, but I'll certainly let folks know there's an interest in that.
Jack, are you talking about the CDP hearing?
I believe it's a CDP meeting, Debbie, but not a hearing necessarily.
Yeah, I know, I misspoke. That's actually being hosted by NPU E. And I can also mention it to Nabil.
Apologize. I thought there was a discussion about a proposal for that Tim had for loosening up, making some changes. And is that the same one you're talking about, Debbie?
It is, yeah, it's changes in the CDP to expand the definition of ADUs to include detached.
Yeah, and it has a beltline piece. Mir introduced the bill. Are we on the same page here, Doug? Are we talking about?
I believe it's
thing?
all. I think it's all part of the same
thing.
conversation tomorrow, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, and it's not the beltline; it's MARTA stations.
You're right. You're absolutely right. I misspoke. That's correct.
I've gotten, no kidding, 100 emails on the topic in the last couple days.
Me too, but not two of them know an accurate explanation of what was being proposed. So I think we do have a lot of education to do here.
Absolutely. Okay, great. Doug, thank you.
No problem. Look for the links in the chat. I'll put them up now.
Thank you. And for those of you that are still in the still with us, you can save the chat by clicking on the 3 dots at the bottom of the chat screen. There's a function that says save chat, and go ahead and do that. And you can save it at any time during the meeting, and it'll save the whole thing at the end of the meeting or until you hang up. Okay, neighborhood and committee reports. Lindridge Martin Manor, anything to report?
No report.
Okay.
Everything's been rained out.
Yeah, I know. Piedmont Heights?
Well, the demolition of the old in-town suites is continuing. They have finished a lot of the asbestos abatement, and they're doing the demolition now. So that's one eyesore that's on the way out. Thank you.
And were you able to take a swing too?
I did not because of personal things and the rain. Haven't yet.
I hope they save a wall for you, Jim. You've earned it. Morningside Lenox Park.
Last week, our board meeting focused on security, and we had more than 130 people attend via Zoom. We appreciate the neighborhood's engagement and have had many volunteers raise their hand to get involved and help drive solutions on the increased crime. But on happier notes, we are having a great membership drive and had a successful summer movie night in the park, and look forward to the next ones at the end of this month and next month.
Great, thank you. Virginia Highland.
I see we had a couple of Virginia Highland board members on, but I see they have departed. So I won't let them give an update, but I'll just remind everyone that Summerfest is coming. If you've been missing the chance to participate in a 5K, our 5K race will be back, and you can register for that on active.com.
Great, thank you. Edmund Park.
Nothing, Debbie, all quiet here.
Did you all have elections?
Nope, we don't. We haven't.
Oh, okay. All righty. Emory.
Hey, Debbie, David Payne here with Emory. Just a quick update on the project I mentioned last month, and that's our graduate student housing initiative across from Druid Hills High School. Since the NPU meeting last month, we had a virtual community meeting that was very well attended, over 100 people. We're moving forward with a rezone next month that will come to the NPU probably in September, and in conversations with Druid Hills Civic Association about their questions and concerns.
Okay, great. In Druid Hills?
Thank you, Debbie. David, thank you, because that covers what I wanted to say as well. We've been working with David on the Emory Graduate Student Housing Initiative. I also wanted to call out that we have restarted our monthly Druid Hills History Walks, which you can find out about at our website at druidhills.org. I'll post a link in the chat.
Cool. Okay, is there a Parks, Tree and Environment report?
Just to mention, last time we talked about the grand bargain with the outdoor signs and possibly a small educational area along South Fork Peachtree Creek. ZRB discussed it on July 1st. It was supposed to be discussed again on July 8th by the ZRB. However, that meeting was postponed due to a administrative snafu. And we'll see what happens when the ZRB meets again. I do know, though, that the vote of our NPU was conditioned upon the approval by the other NPUs, but I understand that the other NPUs did not support the grand bargain.
That's correct. Public safety, Jim?
Just a reminder, anybody that sees anything suspicious or notices a crime in progress, make sure you call 911. That's the way the police department gets dispatched. And it's also how they control the stats, or how they measure the stats on where bodies are needed. Thanks.
Okay, thanks. And I do have a very brief chair report. For those of you that were able to get to the consent agenda, there is a link to register for the CDP discussion that Jack and I spoke about a little bit earlier. It is tomorrow night at 5:30. If you're not able to get to it and you're interested, shoot me an email or put something in the chat and I will send you that information. Let's see, Major Reese mentioned earlier that the Zone 6 Town Hall meeting has been rescheduled to Wednesday, July 28th. Kay said that we would get out the information so that you can register for that meeting. NPU F is going to continue to meet virtually, probably for the rest of the year. Our attendance seems to be higher and our meetings have gotten a lot more efficient, believe it or not. So I think we're going to follow the wave until Hillside is ready to take us back, if ever. As Rich mentioned, the ZRB meeting where the grand bargain was going to be discussed and resolved was canceled. Also on that agenda was 901 Lindbergh, which is the rezoning application this NPU voted to deny, and also the special use permit that was for the deck at the Mix that we discussed maybe 2 months ago, was also on that agenda, which was an NPU denial. And I understand they will all be heard at the August meeting. APAB met last Saturday. The Center for Civic Innovation presented their key findings in theory of change to the members of APAB. This was a result of their 2.5-year study of the NPU system that they have called the NPU Initiative. Final recommendations will be developed using a collaborative process with NPUs, APAB, and others that'll take place in August and in early part of September. They believe that they should have recommendations ready by mid-September, about 6 weeks before the campaign, so that they can be used as talking points for candidates that are running for office. And then one personal note, and Carrie, if you're still with us, I think you'll appreciate this. There were 21 NPUs that were represented at the APAB meeting last Saturday. I believe that's a record. Only 4 NPUs were not present. 3 years ago, when I became president, we only had 11 NPUs, which wasn't even a quorum, couldn't even conduct business. So this is this is cool. I'm thrilled. And then finally, there are 2 NPU committee chair openings, the zoning committee, which will shepherd zoning processes for the NPU, and then also NPU F Education Chair. We haven't had one in a while. The APS is looking for an NPU liaison at all NPUs. So if you're interested, please let me know. We're also looking for additional members for the Public Safety Committee and also the alcohol licenses and permits. Jane and Jim are doing yeoman's work for that, but I think that they could use some. And I know that there's folks out there that would like to participate. So that's it. Okay. Any questions about any of the reports? Any comments? I don't see any. Alcohol licenses, we have two. The first is Midtown Moon. The applicant has requested a deferral to allow time to meet with Ansley neighbors. Are there any objections to deferring this to the August meeting? Okay, I don't see any objections, so we will defer that one. The next one is GoPuff, located at 2233 Faulkner Road. This is a retail package application. It's a new business. The applicant is David C. Reeves, and I'm going to turn this over to our Alcohol and Permits co-chair, Jane Rawlings.
Thanks, Debbie. So this is, as Debbie alluded, this is an application for a new business to be licensed as a retail package store with an alcohol license to sell beer and wine. There will be no on-premise consumption. The agent, David Reeves, is represented by Sardin Leff, and Mindy Thompson is the attorney handling this case. So I'm going to give Mindy just a few minutes to explain the business model and answer any quick questions.
Okay. And
hello, everyone.
We see Mr. Reeves' face just to confirm that he's present.
Hey, everyone, I'm here.
Thank you.
Hi, everyone. I'm Mindy Thompson with Sardin Leff Attorneys, as Jane mentioned, and we represent GoPuff regarding their alcohol licenses in the state of Georgia. And specifically at this location, 2233 Faulkner Road, GoPuff has actually been operating here for the past 2 years. And now they're seeking to add the beer and wine package to the consumer goods and food delivery items that they already handle currently. So GoPuff is a consumer goods and food delivery service, and they operate in over 600 cities throughout the United States. And users would order items online or through the app. And as you may or may not know, in 2020, I think it was pushed mainly because of COVID, the state revised its law regarding home delivery of alcoholic beverages rather. And so now businesses such as Publix, Kroger, so on and so forth, can deliver beer and wine, and liquor stores can also deliver liquor as well. And so GoPuff, who has already been operating in the market, is now adding this to their existing stores. These are non-on-site stores. So everything is done through the app itself. There will be no customers coming to the store to purchase on site. It's all done online. David, who can give a little bit background of himself, but he has been working with GoPuff for the past 3 years. Prior to that, was in management for Amazon. He is the director of operations for GoPuff in this region. So we're happy to answer any questions that you guys may have.
David, is there anything you wanted to add?
No, just a quick introduction for myself. Correct. I am the director of operations for here, and just emphasize the clarity that it's an app-based execution, that there is no retail. And in fact, we separate ourselves from any potential walk-up customers for how we've set up the operation. So through the utilization of drivers, it is a home delivery based system only.
How do you check for age?
Within our driver app, we have a mechanism that we have to scan the back of an unexpired driver's license in order to verify that it's a true driver's license. And then there's the picture comparison from the driver. And in order to complete the transaction, you have to go through the verification steps to be able to complete the transaction and transition the bag between the driver and the customer.
Okay. Marla Johnson, question, comment?
I just had a question about the operating hours. I saw that it says 10 a.m. to 3 a.m. Monday through Sunday, but on Sunday, aren't you only allowed to sell from 12:30 to 11:30? Is that the ordinance?
Correct. We have an internal toggle switch that is automated based on preset times.
Oh,
so
okay.
Yeah, the app will not reflect alcohol is available until 12:30 on Sundays.
Okay, that's cool. Thank you.
And if there are no other questions, Debbie, I can't see, but.
Oh, I just have another question or a comment to Mindy. When I received this application, I went on GIS to find the location. And there is no 2233 Faulkner in GIS. Were you aware of that?
No, we were not aware of that. The lease agreement that GoPuff has identifies the address as 2233.
Is it in a building with multiple addresses?
Yes, yes. And I believe, so they already have an existing business license as they've been operating there for the past 2 years, and the city does identify it as 2233 Faulkner.
Right, I saw their business license, but it's just not on GIS. And as you know, GIS is used by many things, probably also by APD to find a location. So you might want to check with the city on getting that updated.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you. Oh, Sue McHale.
Yes, I have a question. What is that building going to be used for? Is there things that are going to be stored there? Is alcohol going to be stored there? Or what's going to be inside that building?
So all of the product that's applicable to the app is kept here on site. So we would have storage, yes.
So there will be alcohol on the premise.
Correct.
Okay.
Okay.
And I had one other question. One was the location question regarding GIS, which Debbie asked. But the second, what percentage of gross receipts do you anticipate from alcohol sales?
The forecast is, so I have variation in different parts of the country from this, where it can range from 10% all the way to 30%. Other municipalities, for instance, require a 50-50 penetration. And for the most part, we stay well below that 50-50 split as far as non-alcohol and alcohol product.
Thank you. And by way of explanation, the site is currently zoned industrial. This location is exempt from distance requirements to residential zoning, secondary to legislation sponsored by Jennifer Ide and passed by council on the 13th of January of this year. So if there were any questions regarding that's the background there. So Debbie, if there are no other questions from members, I'll go ahead and make a motion.
Go ahead.
I move to support this application.
And I'll second that.
That was Kay? Great.
Yes.
Thank you. Okay, motion was made and properly seconded to support the GoPuff LRB application at 2233 Faulkner Road. This is a new business. Is there any discussion on the motion? Seeing no hands raised, I will call for the vote. All those in favor, please raise your hand. Okay, I don't see the number changing. There are 17 ayes. All those opposed, please raise your hand. I don't see any hands raised. Any abstentions, please raise your hand. I see one abstention. Any others? Okay, by a vote of, thank you, I'm going to lower the hands. By a vote of 17 in favor, 0 nays, and 1 abstention, the motion carries. Thanks,
Thank you.
Mindy. We will see you next month for Midnight Moon.
Yep, see you then.
Thanks, everybody.
Okay, now to special events, and thank you to the event organizers for hanging out with us. First special event is Atlanta Pride Festival. This is for Piedmont Park, October 9 through 10. They have, their application was for a Class E event, 1,950 participants, which we know is going to be is a little small. So Jamie, can you please explain how many people that you're thinking are going to be at the at Pride this year, and what changes, if any, to the event?
Sure, absolutely. You're correct that we are not going to be a Class E event. Perhaps like, I'm not sure if you've seen other big events yet, but we were all initially advised by Mo's when they reopened for permits to apply so that our dates were in order and so that our applications got out to the neighborhoods. And every time the dashboard's updated, Mo's is looking to see what category of events they're approving. I believe they're up to Class C now, and should be up to Class A by Dogwood in 2 weeks. We'll see how that goes. So we've actually already requested to amend our application. If we can't take place as a B, we won't take place just because we won't meet our own internal safety guidelines, but we hope to be a Class A returning on our regular weekend, October 9th and 10th in the park. You might see our weekends listed as the 8th through the 10th, but there's nothing in Piedmont Park on Friday the 8th, just like we've made that change to be without Friday nights 7 or 8 years ago. So there's nothing other than set up in the park prior to the weekend. The major change this year is that we are working to do a lot of COVID mitigation protocols in addition to meeting whatever requirements are set forth by the city, which are moving and changing, as I'm sure that you're aware. We are working with Grady Health Systems and Grady EMS and Emory Hospital and Emory School of Nursing to work on how to redesign the festival to allow for distancing if people want to distance. We can't enforce it. No one's going to be able to enforce distancing, but we want to allow for it for people who want that. We're making changes that some people may not notice, but changing how we provide the free water that's required with our permit. We've doubled the number of hand washing stations that are required, plus put additional hand sanitizer stations that are not required, that are in addition to what's required. We are also what we're working with Emory School of Nursing on specifically is public health messaging around masking, around distancing and other health protocols. We are doing voluntary testing on site for people who want it, and COVID testing in addition to all of the other health screenings that we provide every year. And we're in discussions right now about potentially providing vaccinations on site, but that's not done. But we're doing our best to be good public health stewards in that way. And our commitment is that we will follow whatever the CDC guidelines are in place at the time of our event around COVID mitigation protocols. And I can't tell you exactly what that looks like now, because we all know that during COVID times, the recommendations change weekly, but we're doing our best to change. One other significant change for us, our security coordinator of over 10 years. Major Leanne Browning has just retired from the department. So we are working with a new security team. We're planning to use the same security plan that she's developed with us over the last decade. But we are actively working with the department to find someone at the leadership level to be our coordinator. While we were not required to have someone in leadership level because of the size of our event and the nature of protesters and things that can gather, it's our preference to have someone at minimum a lieutenant level who's our security coordinator. And I'm currently working with APD leadership to figure out the new person for that role. She retired effective 2 or 3 days ago. So that's a recent change, but I don't expect that will be a change that's felt in the neighborhood. We plan to keep our security plan in place. Those are the major changes for us this year. The forecasts are the attendance at large events this year, forecast by the International Festival and Events Association and Southeastern Festivals, are that most events will see attendance down 20 to 30%. I think everyone's really just guessing at that. We'll know more about that once Dogwood happens, once Music Midtown happens, once Jazz Fest happens, and we'll be watching those numbers closely. But that is the current projection. We're prepared to handle our crowds of the same size that we had in 2018 and 19, but we're projecting that they'll be down somewhat because there will be some people who aren't willing to travel, don't feel safe, or want to stay home. And so we're also going to do more streaming of the event so that people who prefer to stay home can interact with the event.
Great. Will there still be parades this year?
Yes. So we actually submitted the parade application later. So I know assemblies don't go through the same process, but you may not have seen the permit yet because we were waiting a little longer on the parade because mitigations look a lot different along the streets than they do in the park. And there have not been any parade or march mitigation requirements set by the city. We were trying to wait for the city to set those to make sure they were reasonable and that they match with our comfort level, but they have not. So at 90 days, we went ahead and submitted so that it's in the works, but we will be doing the parade. We're also live televising the parade again this year, and we'll be encouraging people if they don't feel safe or they don't want to get out to watch in that way.
Great. Okay. Any other questions for Jamie? Pride's been around forever, and it's been a well-managed event. We appreciate all the work that you put into it. Is there a motion?
A motion to support. I'll second.
Thank you. So motion by Jane, second by Kay. Any discussion on the motion? Seeing no hands raised, all those in favor of the motion, please raise your hand using your icon. Is that a raised paw? I saw that paw. She's probably too young to vote. Okay, I see 17 in favor. Anyone opposed? I don't see any hands raised, any abstentions. Also no hand raised. By a vote of 17 ayes, no nays, and no abstentions, the motion carries. Jamie, thank you for being here this month.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate the support. And if you ever need to get in contact with me, I'll put my email in the chat. Even during the weekend, if you're having any trouble with people blocking your driveways or things like that, we try to be proactive and stop it, but please reach out and let me know, and we'll do our best to try to mitigate that. We would prefer to stay on friendly terms with the neighborhoods and to be proactive in those arenas. So please feel free to reach out with any questions.
Thank you for that. Thanks.
All right. Have a good night.
Thanks. Virginia Highlands Summerfest Class D event with 9,000 participants at John Howell Park and along Virginia Avenue. The event's scheduled for September 24 to 26. Is the applicant present? Okay, not present. We'll move on to the next one. A performance in the park. Class D event, 9,999 participants, and Piedmont Park, September 29th. This is the Atlanta Symphony Orchestra event. Tyler, hi Tyler.
Hi, how's it going?
It's good. So tell us what you anticipate in terms of size. I think you've been upwards of 15,000 in previous years.
Sure. Yeah. Yeah. In regards to anticipated attendance, we've typically done a Class C permit and anticipated 12,000 people. Of course, since it's a free and open to the public event, sometimes estimating that crowd size has been difficult. Based on my conversations with APD and some of our other marketing associates that have been on site the past couple of years, it appears to me that we've really only been around 6,000 to 8,000 people, and we certainly anticipate not having as many this year, just because of the timing of the event. Again, that's why we submitted it as a Class D event. We'll be moving forward with most of the same setup as we would normally for a Class C event. Just as far as the application process goes, that's the way it seems to me to make the most sense, because really I have not seen 10,000 people, over 10,000 people there in the 3 years that I've been there, even though we've been permitted to have, I think, up to, as you mentioned, 15 or 20,000. I did want to make one more comment about the date that was on the application. So currently it's the 29th. I believe there's an Atlanta public schools, Fulton County cross-country meet was scheduled for the park around that time. So I've been working with Adrian and the Parks Department and some of the people in the Office of Special Events. So we're looking at potentially moving this to, we are looking at moving this to the Tuesday before, on the 28th. So I just resubmitted the application today, and I'm working on confirming that changed date with all of the vendors. So if you guys would like to defer a vote or discussion until next month's meeting, I'm happy to attend the August meeting as well. Or if you'd like any more information, happy to provide that as well. But yes, because of all the events that people are trying to cram in the fall, us included, because as you know, this event normally takes place in June. There's kind of a crunch for dates in Piedmont Park and lots of scheduling, and we of course want to accommodate all the other festivals and school events. So
Tyler, the way we've been handling those situations is that we've been going ahead and supporting the application or not, one or the other. And once we've heard it, if the date changes, the city sends it back to us. We just put it on our consent agenda.
Okay, great.
An acknowledgement that the date changed, and that's more of a notification to neighbors that if they're interested, that there's a brand new date. So
sure,
there's no need for you to come back, or no requirement for you to come back, but you're always welcome.
Of course.
To our meeting, so thank you. Are there any questions for Tyler? Oh, do you know what the program's going to be?
I do actually. It's going to be some really popular pieces: American in Paris, George Gershwin, Leonard Bernstein, some selections from West Side Story, as well as some excerpts from a violin concerto by Wynton Marsalis from Jazz at Lincoln Center. So it should be a really exciting program. Our new associate conductor is doing it. It's a free event. It's really expensive for the symphony to put on. We raise a lot of money for it, but we think it's important for the community to have access to our music, and for them to be able to appreciate the Grammy Award-winning orchestra that we have in town. So we're one of, I think, probably 15 or 20 full-time symphony orchestras in the country right here in Midtown. So the more we can get that music out, the happier we are, and hopefully the happier the community is too.
Cool. Any questions for Tyler? Is there a motion?
I'll move to support.
Second.
Okay, moves Rich. Seconds, any questions? Last call. The motion is to support a performance in the park by the Atlanta Symphony Orchestra. All those in favor, please raise your hand. Okay. 16 ayes. All those opposed may raise their hands. I don't see any hands raised. Any abstentions, please raise your hand. And no abstention. By a vote of 16 ayes, 0 nays, and 0 abstentions, the motion carries. Thanks, Tyler. I'm sure we will notice that you have changed your date, and we'll go ahead and support that as well.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And the last special event is the Atlanta Dogwood Festival. This is a Class B event, 45,000 participants in Piedmont Park, August 6th through 8th, 2021. So that's just in a couple weeks. This one has been on our agenda multiple times. As you, it was supported on January 20th, 2020, also on April 20th, 2020, July 20th, 2020, with those are all date changes. And now they've changed their attendance. The original application was probably the one that we saw in July of, in April 19th, 2021 was a Class C event, 1,999 participants. As I mentioned earlier, now they're up to 45,000 participants. Is the applicant present? Okay. I don't see the applicant here. Is there a motion? We've supported this
I move to support.
4 times, actually.
I'll
Okay,
second that motion.
okay. Moved by Kay, seconded by Rich. There's no applicant to ask any questions. All those in favor of supporting this application for the 5th time, please raise your hand. changing. 14 have voted in favor. Anyone opposed, please raise your hand now. I don't see anyone in opposition. And if there are any abstentions, please raise your hand now. I don't see any hands raised. By a vote of 14 ayes, 0 nays, and 0 abstentions, the motion carries. Okay. I believe that the last thing on the agenda is a matter for review and comment. This is proposed ordinance 210266 to update the requirements for agreements between Park Pride and Community Garden adopter groups, originally authorized by a resolution in 2007. And this is what I learned as I was reading through the ordinance and the resolution. Back in 2007, the City Council authorized the use of portion of city parks for the creation and operation of community gardens. Community gardens can occupy no more than 2 acres of any particular city park or more than 5% of the park, whichever is smaller. Community gardens can be used for non-commercial purposes and at all times during use of a portion of a city park as a community garden. It should remain the property of the city, and the Department of Parks and Recreation shall remain retained authority. Park Pride would operate the Adopt a Community Garden program, responsibilities on the contract with the city, and as part of the community garden program. Parks and Recreations would require Park Pride to oversee the construction and operation of each community garden, including a requirement that Park Pride enter into an agreement with each group that wishes to adopt a community garden. What this legislation provides is that the initial agreements between Park Pride and any community garden adopter group would be provided for information purposes only to the NPUs wherein the community garden shall be located. So if Park Pride enters into an agreement with an adopter group, it would come to that NPU. And that the agreement shall include a description of the process by which members of the community may secure access to use the community gardens, and that the NPUs would have an opportunity for review and comment before the legislation was adopted. I had no idea that city parks could be used for community gardens. Did anybody else know that?
Yeah, there's a community garden. It has been a community garden at different times at Piedmont Park. There's a community garden at Freedom Park. I'm sure there are other elsewhere in the city as well.
Cool.
The only thing that stuck out to me about this was, that the original legislation said to be used for non-commercial purposes only. Didn't we just approve something that said that they could actually sell the produce from these gardens?
I think there was a restriction on where those community gardens had to be, where you could be used for non-commercial. But I think that's a good point, and I'll make that comment.
Yeah.
Okay. I may not be remembering it right, but I seem to remember us looking at something in the last couple of months about that.
Here, I think we should support this on first of all, I think the capacity for community gardens in the city is vastly underutilized, particularly now as Georgia Power has loosened up some of their use restrictions and allowing people to do things under their lines, even leasing some of their land. There's land right off, for example, in Morningside off Yorkshire that if had it been in Virginia Highland, we would have aggressively pursued it. The neighbors may not always, you do need to deal with immediate neighbor reactions, but Park Pride is just the group to do that. And they've got a lot of resources. They have the staff time to push it. They can do it logically. And I think it would be a great outcome if they moved on this. And I think we should encourage them.
Yeah, they're not asking for a recommendation, only for comments.
Well, that's our comments, is go do it fast and get going, because there's a lot of opportunity and a lot of institutional reluctance. But Park Pride would be sometimes a better looking partner, I think, than just loosey-goosey community groups, no matter whether that's fair or not. I think that's the way it'll appear.
Yeah. The thing that was interesting to me was that the legislation calls for the NPU being advised and to provide input on any adopter group agreement that comes through. So
we'll get to slander anybody that tries it out of NPUF. We'll get to have at them.
Oh yeah, that's certainly something to look forward to. Okay, any other comments? Okay, I've made some notes and we'll pass those along to the appropriate person in the city. Is there any other business to come before the NPU tonight? Is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Okay, is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Jim. All those in favor, please raise your hand or
Leave.
or disconnect, end the meeting. Don't forget that you can save the chat by clicking on the 3 buttons at the bottom of the chat. And if you sent me a chat message, I might have missed it, but I will read these tomorrow. So,
And I did provide the link to our Facebook page where I posted the information about the upcoming APD Zone 6 Town Hall.
okay, great. Thank you.
Thank you, Debbie.
Thank you, Aruna. You've done the hard work.
Okay, good night all.
Good night. Good night,
Thanks,
everyone.
everyone.
See you next month or at the town hall meeting or tomorrow night.